right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. My name is Ian Robinson, a Master ZBrush Trainer and Community Manager here at Maxon, and we're here to make learning ZBrush as fun as possible by making weird stuff, which is what I like to do. So what's going on? Hey, Motu Men, how you doing? Welcome. So it has been a minute and a half since I've streamed. Let me set up one thing real quick. Just adjusting my tablet here. So yeah, so we're gonna get into it. What's up, Chris? So we're gonna get into it here in a minute. As you see, we got a little bit of a blank canvas here. Last stream was a few weeks ago, and I was working on my Deadpool character. And I thought today, just since my first stream back after being sick, that I just kind of want to get into something, have like a nice little sketch session. Normally these streams go for about 3 hours, but still a little under the weather, so we're probably only going to go for about 2, but let's see what we can do. And of course, if you guys have questions, you can always ask questions, anything related to art, ZBrush, anything you want to hear me rant on about, that's what we're here for. So let's go ahead and get into it. And right now, I'm going to go ahead and hit play, because I like to have background music. It's never too loud, but hopefully loud enough that you also can hear it. But I don't like blasting people's ears out because that's not fun. So let's go ahead and move into some ZBrush. And also, actually, before we get started, sorry, I'm gonna do one thing real fast. Something really cool. Here, let's see. Let me pull it up first. Let me see something real fast because I wanna share something with you guys. And if you don't know, now you do. Here we go. ZBrush for iPad will be coming soon. And if you would like to be a part or try to be a part of the beta, because we're looking for beta testers right now, go ahead and follow the link to this website, which will then allow you to come in and you'll apply for the beta. And basically you just come in here, answer a couple questions, and you can see this beautiful artwork that was 100% done in the ZBrush for iPad in its current build right now, which is still not public. So again, if you want any interest whatsoever in trying to apply for the beta, try to get some early access, definitely come in here. And like I said, click this link below that says apply for the beta, and then it'll ask you a few questions and come in there and so forth. There you go. So it'll pop up here and you'll see some questions and then go ahead and submit that. So definitely give that a go. So if you're interested, follow the link and hopefully you'll get into the beta. All right. That being said, I have some reference off on the side over here, but we're gonna play a little bit of a game where you guys try to see if you know what I'm sculpting, and yeah, we'll see if you guys can get it. It's a little bit of a throwback. I need the beta, trying to decide if I need to get the top of the line iPad with 16 gigabytes of RAM or with a standard 8 to do it. So Chris, what I can tell you is I'm not on the latest version of the iPad and I'm beta testing it. And I'm working on a piece right now that's over 29 million polys, and it's flying normal. It feels good. So do you need the top of the line? Probably not. If it supports a pencil, an Apple Pencil, and it's halfway decent of an iPad, you should be fine. Again, I can't promise or say because the final specs haven't come out, but the top of the line, no, I don't even have top of the line. So I can tell you right now, you wouldn't need the top of the line for something like that. So yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff. The stuff I want to tell you guys, trust me, I have, again, I got things and says that I can't say. Things and stuff and things I want to say, but I can't. So please bear with me as I have to hold my tongue, but please apply for the beta as soon as possible. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get into some sketching real quick, and let's see if you guys can guess what it is that I'm doing. So let's go through. Hello, Anya, how you doing? Welcome in. Always a pleasure to see you. What's happening? What's up, Steven? How you doing? Yes, that 1 3D artist. Hello, how you doing? Oh, thank you. Yes, yeah. All right, so let's get in. Ryan, oh my God, I almost bought a new iPad for it. I mean, yeah. If you have a pencil right now, try to get into the beta. Let's start with the basics here. Try to get into the beta and see if you guys get in there. But again, more information will be coming out soon. Eye placement. Eye placement's always a thing. So here we go. So automatically I'm starting with a sphere, and we're going to do some my placement stuff. So I might give you a small tell on what's happening. Boom, 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 boom. We're just literally going to just start tearing in on this thing. I'm going to do something like that. But here's what we are going to do. So, and it's not Pac-Man. Don't even guess Pac-Man. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that much right now. Let's see. Hey, what's up, Ryan? Good morning. Good morning. Broshuk, how you doing? Welcome. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing in the chat? Yeah, yes. Okay, so we're gonna come in here, get some radial symmetry turned on. Which, please? Oh, I'm doing the wrong thing. Yeah, okay, great. I'm clicking buttons. How long has it been since you streamed, Ian? Long enough to not know what things do anymore. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and do a little bit of a radial symmetry here and kind of get a little bit of a flat spot. And we're also gonna go something like this. Okay, I'm gonna work on that Dynamesh a little bit. I'm not gonna save it until somebody guesses. Is it Cult of the Lamb related? Oh, that's a good one. I have done Cult of the Lamb. Have you not seen that one? Let me see. I have sculpted Cult of the Lamb. That's actually one of my favorite video games that I have yet to complete. It was one of the video games where, oh my God, is it not on my ArtStation? What the heck? Okay, I guess I'll have to put it on. Is it my Instagram? Let me see if I can show you real quick. Yes. Oh, come on. I'm not a robot. Somebody let me in. Let me into my own stuff. Fine. Whatever. Okay, well, anyway, if you go to my Instagram, Irosculpts, you'll see the Cult of the Lamb piece. I was going to show you, but I guess not. What we do sculpt a Saturday? Ooh, that's a... Ooh. I don't know. No. What do we sculpt Saturday? No, I didn't sculpt anything Saturday. What are some of the hints? That's a great question. Okay, it's great. Well, besides the shape that's currently on here, let's see. Think 19. Okay, never mind. It's a 90s show and it involves a piece of fruit. There you go. And why does my music stop? Why did my music stop? Is the internet laggy today? Please play. Okay. We'll see if it kicks back on. Okay. Unless, did I die? Is my stream still alive? Are we still good? Nope, still good. Okay. Just the website servers, all that good jazz. That's always fun. Anyway, what is everybody else working on? Okay, let's turn this off. Let's turn radial symmetry back off. I don't want that on anymore. There we go. And let's do this. I'm actually going to work a little bit lower than I typically do. So I actually want this to be more like 32 resolution, but I don't want there to be much of a blur. Just want to get some of these shapes locked in there. So let's do this. Let's just start diving and just tear right into this guy. Is it a cartoon? Oh, I love all these questions. Yes, it is a cartoon. Changed my mind. Let's not go this low. That's too low. It is a cartoon. Yep. It might become more apparent as we work on it more. Let's pull this back. I'm gonna try to restart my music. I don't know if you guys are like me, but like I have a hard time not having. I have a hard time with silence. Long silence or mean comments. What the heck is happening? Might just have to deal with no music today, which would suck. That's okay. Maybe we'll just put this song on repeat. We'll see. Okay. We'll see if it fires back up. Is it Mickey Mouse? No, not Mickey Mouse. No. No. I don't want to get, I can't get anyone sued. Let's just start with that. I am at work. I need music or talking to friends while I work. Dude, seriously, yeah. I'm definitely a music person. I'd say for the majority of everything that I do, if I don't have music, then I'm pretty much losing my mind. Music is like a part of my soul. I need to have it. Which is also probably why I play the drums. Because I love playing music, I love hearing it. Okay. So we got the basic shape of something gross. So let's do this. Actually, okay, so normally for eyes, I put in like a sphere and then I move it around. But if you guys don't know, especially for everyone who's just starting out, we do have macros up here that are pre-built with ZBrush. And you literally can just hit append eyes. Now, these eyes typically would be set for, of course, something, you know, that has a little bit more like dimension to it or whatnot. Or not dimension, but like maybe proper measurements, if Ian can speak for 5 seconds. So here, but it does append 2 spheres that already are kind of colored and have the proper material on it. So, and when I say proper material, it has like, it's toy plastic. So you literally can set all this in. Now they are black eyes, so you can come up here to color and just fill those in with white if you want. So, but this way, like, you at least have a pair of eyes and they have poles on them. So, and then of course, even with eyes, you don't want the eyes or the pole of the eyes looking straight because then they tend to look a little cross-eyed. Your eyes are always slightly pointed away from your face, so a little bit more like this, which makes it feel a little bit more natural. So if you have it in like this, they just tends to look a little bit more cross-eyed. And then if you have it like that, it just feels a little bit more natural. And I always make the adjustments of the eyes, like growing them and moving everything under local symmetry. That way it stays uniform. There we go. So say something like such. And then here I'm gonna go ahead and let's get in a shape because we're gonna want a tongue thing. I'm gonna want a tongue thing. I don't even know what that means. Ninja Turtles is a no. Good guess, good guess. I called it a fruit. There were fruits in there. Didn't the copyrights expire recently became public domain? Oh, you know what? I guess you're right on that. I guess on Mickey Mouse that is true. I don't know. I'm playing it safe, people. Gotta play it safe, I think. But yeah, you know what? You raise a valid point there. So we're going to go ahead, kind of build this little bit of a tongue thing. Tongues are interesting because they go down the throat. Now, and it's really interesting the way a tongue is connected. So I always like to have this big swooping arc in the back and put it down so that it looks like it's going down into the throat, the way the muscle works. So it's not exact, it just feels and looks right. So here, let's come in here and let's go up and let's see, 125 should be fine. No blur, Dynamesh, there we go. I'm a big Dynamesh person if you don't know. There we go, yeah. And then I like to try to get this webbing in here. Just a quick rough little sketch. And then let's go ahead and get this situated into the mouth area. Say something like this. And then Kind of get that tongue just in there just a little bit. Here we go. Maybe make it a little bit more like that. And then drop that down just a little bit. Okay. Greetings from Colombia. Hello, welcome. Yep, tongue things. There's a slew of people doing that character, which every which way. That's true. Yeah, 100%. Fruit Ninja. I like that's a. Isn't that a game? Isn't Fruit Ninja a game? I like that. Leapfrog. I don't know. I think it's a frog. It's looking cool. Reminds me of a frog. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Only for Steamboat Willie. Chris, thank you. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay. Yeah. It's a Pokemon script. Nope. No. Here, I'll do something that hopefully maybe makes it a little bit more obvious here. So let's stamp this over here. I'm actually going to go ahead and let's go out of edit mode and switch here for a second. And let's actually pick, let's grab this Helix real fast. Going to go into edit mode, but I'm in edit mode. I'm not in make Polymesh 3D, but we're going to go ahead and initialize this. And now we're going to kind of drop some of this coverage a little bit. Say something like that. There we go. And then we want to kind of taper this a bit. So I'll say something like this, which will be kind of cool. And then for the radius here, we don't need it too crazy. Yeah, maybe something like that will be kind of cool. Okay. And then I'm not using this topology in any way. I'm actually going to ZRemesh it because I'm getting a little bit of tension in this area here and I don't like that. So we're actually going to not divide that. Let's put this more like that. That's fine, but let's divide it up here. Kind of get just a little bit more like this and just divide that. Yeah, just something like this. That's fine. We can tweak it the rest of the way. Now I'll make Polymesh 3D. Come back in here to this guy. And for whatever reason, that music just is not going to do it. Let's put that Helix up in there. I actually did a really big stem, and I didn't mean to go that big with it, but you never know what you can need. You can always chop stuff off. If you don't need it, you don't need it. Let's put the center line there. Let's put something a little bit more like this. There we go. Do something like that. Let's call this a stem. Stem. This character looks like my hungry cat. That's fair. Yeah. I finally made it to see the stem. That's right. Yep, it's right, Eva. How you doing, Eva, by the way? Teletubbies. Is it Attack of the Killer Tomatoes? Boom! Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we're going to do there. Boom. Congratulations. Hold on. Your name is like in dark blue against the blue. What is it? Oh my God. Yeah, with Hello Boy. Boom. Perfect. Yay, I'm great. You're learning ZBrush. Yep, perfect. Yep, that's exactly it. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Congratulations, man. Nailed it. Yes. Yep. So there is a little bit of a story on why I chose this theme. And that was because I got really sick, unfortunately, before I was supposed to go to Germany. And we were going to do, there was a live stream that happened on this channel, Maxon through a stream. If you guys don't know who VFX and Chill is, VFX and Chill is actually such an amazing group of guys that actually are here with Maxon. And they actually did, here real quick, actually, let's pull that off. They actually did, let's see here. They actually did a live stream where they took Paul Gabriel and they actually turned around and like bound his hands and stuff like that. So he had a ZBrush with like oven mitts on, which is so cool. That was supposed to be me. I was supposed to be that person who got tied down. Anyway, and the thing was Attack of the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's super amazing, and I love that show. My mom was a huge fan of that show when I was growing up, so I was like, dude, why haven't I sculpted one? And sure enough, like that was the theme itself. So I was like, I have to do it in honor of Paul not being able to finish his piece. I had to just do it. So we're here now. All right, so now I can save it actually. So let's go here. So let's go 2024, and let's just do Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Boom. Stream. So this will be a fun little project. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Boom. All right, and let's call this block out. 001. All right, perfect. There we go. What I'll do is I'll duplicate this face here so then that doesn't change, and then this will be the actual body. Don't like plant. No, I really did not plan. I promise. Did not plan on, I don't know, getting a viral lung infection and then not being able to breathe for 2 weeks. Yeah, that was definitely 100% not part of the plan. Or maybe it was. I guess you'll never know. I guess you'll have to choose to believe me. But man, it was so crazy. So anyway, so I was like, oh man, I was definitely feeling FOMO there. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do my own piece. I'm gonna do it. That's what's gonna happen. Oh, okay, great. It's perfect. All right, so let's come in here. Music is still not a thing. Pretzel Rocks, thank you so much. You're just truly amazing in every way, shape, or form. Okay, so let's go to initialize. And what I'm going to do here, we're making teeth now, so I'm going to Q-cube this guy. But let's actually go something like this. We're going to make some pretty gross teeth here, I think. So we're going to come in here, mask that part off, get something that looks a little bit like that. Ian, when will we have our collaboration? Yeah, Anya, we definitely have to do that. Probably when, definitely when there's like a good constant schedule. Or yeah. So if you guys don't know, Anya and I, obviously Anya here is an amazing artist, and she's also a ZBrush Live artist. We've been talking about doing a collaboration where we both stream at the same time and we do a big piece. So, but there's obviously a lot in the world going on. So yeah, Anya, let's figure that out. We'll definitely have to plan a time in which that works for everyone. Prashant, what's up, dude? Dude, thanks for popping in, man. Everybody, you guys got to go see Prashant's work too. He's super amazing. Hello, great work. Can I ask a question? Russ US, yes. Or is it Russ Us? Yes, absolutely. You can ask a question. That's what I'm here for. Definitely here to help. Hey, what's up, Gus? What's going on? Yes. Oh, dude, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm glad to be back as well. Believe you me, it's not fun. All right, so here we're going to do is we're going to divide a little bit. So I only have 8 active points, which makes up the bulk of this tooth. So what I like to do is divide and delete a couple times to get just some sort of base, and then turning smooth on, I can then kind of preview what this would look like relatively rounded, which is what we're going to want these teeth to be. Now, we're not going to detail any of this right now, but we are going to drop this down and just get some basic teeth happening. So first, we're going to come in and put this here. Let's move this over just on this side. We're going to turn symmetry on. So let's hit X for symmetry. And then let's go to modify topology and mirror and weld, which is the fastest way to get it symmetrical. And then we're going to come in and start adding this in. And we don't, let's see here. Let's scale this down. So again, let's turn on local sim. Let's scale this down just a bit. Let's put this in like that. And then let's come in. Control and drag allows you to duplicate your subtool. As long as you don't have subdivisions or hidden geometry, you'll be able to do this no problem. This will help us kind of get the base shape in there. Again, drag this out, kind of rotate this around. Okay, perfect. Let's move this here. I'm going to go ahead and actually clear the mask. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to lift this up a little bit. Give him some funness in his mouth, a little bit of shape to it. And then we'll go to polygroups, auto groups, which now every tooth is a different polygroup, which if you're trying to select or move both sides symmetry, but you want to hide certain objects, then you can do it by, you can keep all the different polygroups. You can do it by just control dragging and hitting Control Shift A to then make that all visible. Or what you could do is you can literally just go to mirror and weld again. Just hit mirror and weld, so now the polygroups are the same on both sides. And then you can Control Shift tap, and then you can just move these up as you see fit. So then you can also Control Shift tap with the gizmo out, and then that will mask everything except for the polygroup you selected. So those are ways to go about doing that. And then here we can identify these, and we can make these a little bit thinner because these are front teeth. So front teeth are usually a little bit thinner, and we can make them weird because they're also a little bit longer. Give them a little bit of a buck tooth kind of thing happening there. Great, great. Hey, what's happening, 3D Sculpt Lab? How you doing? Oh, Ian, I have a question. Tell us a story about how you became a 3D artist. I think everybody's heard this one. Pulls out my questions. Yeah, please, guys, ask questions. That's one of the many reasons why I'm here, is also to help answer any questions you guys have with ZBrush. So, if, you know, basically think of this as like a Ask ZBrush Live all the time. Irene, how you doing? You didn't pull out your book of questions? Nothing's stopping you. It's either that, or I could torture you all with how I became a 3D artist, which I know all of you have heard before millions of times. I really want to tell you how excited I am to talk about ZBrush for iPad, and I can't do it. Okay. It's a little bit more like that. There we go. Okay, great. And then I'm going to go ahead and Control Shift D, which duplicates my Subtool completely. If you have a folder in line, Control Shift D will duplicate the folder as well. I don't have any folders currently, but this allows me to then turn around and quickly isolate the teeth in which I would like to have. So I can just do something like this. Now, I could independently move all of the other things, right? Or we can just do a geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, right? And then just do the control drag again. But before I do that, I'm noticing too, I want to know how my teeth are actually going to be, quote, aligned. So most people that I've seen today in most of the references, and also looking at my own face, my own teeth in this world, I don't have my teeth perfectly lined up like this. In fact, I would say it's safe to say that most people don't. Most people have a little bit of an overbite. So you'll have something like this. This would be an extreme, but here I definitely think there would be just a little bit. And our teeth are also following our jaw, and so they're not always just straight up and down. So we can go ahead and actually do a little bit of a push out. Kind of bend them out just a little bit. There we go. So they're not so straight. So with this now, I'm going to kind of drag this in, and this would help that kind of motion. So this would be a good placement for it, but of course the jaw itself isn't lining up, or what would be the jaw. So we're going to go ahead and say move infinite, and we're going to go ahead and just start tweaking this a little bit and give him a little bit more of a jaw structure. And then we'll take the normal move once we've gotten the main shape, kind of get this in there a little bit. And let's reshape it how we want to see that. Again, there's no real wrong way to eat a Reese's here, so we're kind of playing with whatever we want. It's like pre-Halloween right now for us. Now here I can come through, make sure my symmetry is turned on, and control drag again. There we go. Get some of these in here. Maybe drop these down a little bit. Control drag. Then I'll look at the chat, promise. And for this, I'm actually going to give it a little bit of thickness. So let's turn on local symmetry. Let's give it a little bit of thickness. Because again, we have differences between our front teeth, our canines, and our molars. So, and I would say that that's pretty much good enough for government work. So let's go ahead and say auto groups and then mirror and weld. Now, I'm sorry, we want to mirror and weld, but we want to make sure when you mirror and weld, local symmetry turned on is going to mirror and weld to wherever your quote gizmo is. It's based off of that location. So we want to turn off local symmetry so we can mirror and weld and get that proper transfer over. So we're going to hit save. Let's see here. I'm doing well, Irene. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I'm doing well. Let's hear it again. Okay, I'll talk about that here in a second. I do see some questions. When we get in those beta links, I brought an iPad Nano. You bought an iPad Nano, still missing. Okay, so if you real quick, I will plop this back into the chat. This is where you can apply for being a beta tester. So definitely check that out. That's where you're going to want to, you know, come down here, click the apply for beta, put in the information, and then go from there, which is super awesome. What are the most popular 3D modeling techniques and what is the main difference between them? Ooh, that's a great question. So ultimately I'm going to boil it down for you as simple as possible. So there's organic modeling or sculpting, like what we're doing now. There's hard surface modeling, which usually entails a lot more of your like hard surface techniques, you know, that deal with primitive shapes that ultimately like you're manipulating the vertices and the edge loops. So box modeling is an old school way. It's an old school term for basically taking a box and then modeling your thing from said box. So you would use a lot of like vertice and edge loop manipulation, and face manipulation. Then there is, that's, well, okay. Like to keep it simple, hard surface versus organic, that's pretty much where you're going to stop. The techniques then expand within those two subcategories. So you're either organic modeling something or you're hard surface modeling something. There are other avenues like texturing. Now, texturing is a different animal altogether, but if you're talking exclusively for 3D modeling techniques, those are the two big things that you could pretty much then branch off into. So again, like when somebody says box modeling or hard surface, they're usually talking about edge loop, vertice, and face manipulation. So for example, basically like if I were to take, here, let's come over here. Let's put my super ugly tomato on lock here. Let's come over here with a cylinder. Let's make Polymesh 3D, right? So you would take a tool like in ZBrush, it would be ZModeler, and instead of organically scrubbing or scratching or adding material, I would then manipulate like these edge loops here or these faces here. I'd say, oh, you know, I'd want to extrude and I would want to make sure, actually, let's go Q mesh. Yeah, boom. So I would want to Q mesh this face right here, boom, like that, right? So then I'm manipulating these faces, right? And everything I do is a manipulation of this, or I'm gonna manipulate the edge loop itself. So I would insert my own edge loops, which gives me different effects. And you can do this positively, negatively, etc. And then you've been watching me do organic modeling or sculpting. So those are the big ones. The things to think about is, again, it's the techniques then within those techniques that you'd be utilizing. If you're branching out away from 3D modeling, that's when rigging and texturing comes into play. There are people who literally just do retopo work. That's their main bread and butter. That's all they do. And trust me, that's a big job and somebody has to do it. So there are some studios that have dedicated retopo workers that just focus on the retopo side. And then from there are people who just deal with clothing. Now, clothing, again, could be sculpted or it can be box modeled. So there's not a dedicated technique developed for a specific thing typically, because then, like, for example, you fall into procedural modeling, which is another another category that then goes off of that. So if you think Cinema 4D, for example, if you wanted to make like a canyon, you would take some sort of plane and then you can add a noise to it, and you could procedurally then start manipulating the object from nodes and sliders and stuff like that. So it's a huge conversation. Obviously, it can't all be answered in a single answer like this. But if that gives you an idea of like there's procedure modeling, there's organic modeling, there's hard surface modeling, then you fall into texturing, rigging, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot there. Hopefully that helps, because that's a big one. But great question, by the way. Great question for it. Okay, here. So let's do this real quick. You're still waiting to hear the story of becoming. If you guys don't know, Anya's been asked this question a lot lately. She doesn't want to feel left out. Why use move infinite and not just grab via transpose? Great question. So, okay. So for that question, hashtag Anya not ignoring you. Here, so the reason why move infinite works so well is, let's say I want to manipulate evenly both sides of my mesh, both the front and the back. Well, with normal move, even if I grabbed a big brush and I pulled this thing out like this, there's only so much information that it's going to grab, because if ZBrush is utilizing the vertices in itself to pull said geometry. And even though that big brush did pull that out quite well, if I were to use move infinite and move this out, see, now here it retains the actual volume. If I were to go back here to say something like this and pull this back out, you'll see here how this is starting to taper and thin out, because it's only grabbing, even though it's a big brush, it's only grabbing it's only grabbing the vertices the brush can handle. Where move infinite means infinite depth of your current location, meaning where you grab. If I grab here and start pulling this out, now it actually pulled all of these vertices, all of this, and then moved that out along with it. So that actually becomes very helpful. In something like this, even though I had symmetry turned on, there are times in which it's not going to grab everything exactly the way I want. So move infinite solves that problem for me. So it allows me to pull this down here evenly, coming up and pull this up. And I know what's going to happen is that evenly across the board, everything in line of my brush grabbing, so including this middle section right here, is going to be affected. And that's going to help me grab and get those shapes exactly as I want them to. Where in cases like now I want to move his cheeks in a little bit like this, maybe give his a little bit of thickness, and I want to refine the shape a bit. This is where the move brush comes into play. It just makes it a little bit easier to work with. So it's just a different brush for a different type of result, ultimately. Great question. Great question. Ooh, I have a question. When I use Control-Alt to clone a subtool with a gizmo, the clone does not have a polygroup. Activating Dynamesh deletes the clone and acts as a Boolean nearby. Is this intentional? Okay, well, so you don't need to hold Control plus Alt to clone a subtool. So that's the first one. All you need to do to manipulate is press and hold Control, and then that does that. And if I let go, then it's fine. This also means that when holding Control and I drag this out and I go boo doo 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 doo, I can let go and still drag, and it will repeat those steps individually. What might be happening, and I'd have to see, yep, that's what I thought. So what is happening is when you press Control and Alt, you actually have a white polygroup. So yes, this is intentional. You have a white polygroup, and when you Dynamesh something, what the white polygroup is actually designed to do is to cut. There you go. That is the old school way of doing live Boolean. It's just not live. It's actually cut. So white polygroups are designed and seen as ZBrush as a negative, as a subtractive material. So it's going to say, yo, you have a white polygroup, therefore boom, it gets deleted. So, and this makes it really simple. If you need to trim this really quickly, right? If I were to press Control Alt, drag this up, and then say drag, drag, boom, I just trimmed that side. It's done. It's a super easy, effective way of cutting something with the duplicate mesh. So, but to just duplicate, you don't need to hold Alt. Alt will give you a subtractive one. What Alt is doing ultimately is, like I said, it's granting a different polygroup. So, and in some cases, like with ZModeler, for example, if we were to go back to this example here, go to ZModeler, and this is kind of the idea, it just works differently, is that pressing Alt, again, when I press and hold Alt and I tap, notice that these polygroups are white. Those are called temporary polygroups, right? And then I drag this out. If I press Alt again, that's going to go ahead and allow me to change my polygroup with the ZModeler action. You don't get the same action here with this guy, but what you do get is saying, hey, I just want this to be a negative polygroup, and that's why when you do this, boom, it disappears, because it's seeing it as a negative and it's wanting to cut. Oh, Anya says, have a great stream. Need to watch it later. I need to run. Oh, not a problem, Anya. Well, then I guess I'll answer the question later. My biggest issue is smoothing out my mesh. It's so lumpy and I have no clue how to polish it. Dude, that's a super great question. And actually, we'll get to that as I work on this a little bit more, because that is actually, it's easily achieved. The thing you want to remember is smooth is destructive, right? Smooth will literally get rid of all of my detail, and that's not what you want. There is a way to do relaxed smoothing, which is you start to smooth, you press and hold smooth, so you're pressing, hold, and shift, you start to smooth, and then you let go of shift, and now I'm doing a relaxed smoothing. But notice it's still, if my mesh is super low res, it's still very destructive. And yes, I can come down and hold shift and drop the intensity, blah, blah, blah. However, a way to really control the smoothness of your mesh is to use like ZRemesher and get a smooth, like actual smooth geometry, and it's not Dynamesh. But I'll show you that here in a minute. There's ways to achieve that. You just, to keep it as smooth as possible, you want the mesh as low as possible, which in and itself will be very, very helpful. So, okay. In fact, here, what I want to do is I want to give him a little bit more of a nose base while we're here critiquing. So I want to put this in, pull this down a little bit. So I'll get to answering that by showing you here in a minute when we get to that kind of point. Do not worry. Right now, I actually want to find the eye sockets or the orbital of the eyes. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Doop, boop, 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 boop. I don't know if I could technically sing that song. That's how you know I need music. Hey, sorry for bothering you, which you're not doing, by the way. I wanted to. Oh, okay, great. Well, maybe you know, we don't need that. Thanks, though. So never mind. Different strokes for different folks. Absolutely fascinating, fascinating. I will check if you told us a story about how you're becoming a 3D artist in the stream. It's not going to happen when you're not here, Anya. But I understand you have to go. I understand you have to go. Yeah, it was super helpful. Thanks for the quick look at those principal techniques. I want to know also in what fields to use each of those main two categories that you mentioned, organic and hard surface. It really is. It really is up to you. This is gonna sound kind of like a cop-out answer as I ZRemesh this face here real quick. So let's hit save. Notice that my hands and my mouth don't work together as well sometimes. But it really is up to you and when you choose to use that, because it depends on the effect that you want to get. Like, for example, there are a lot of ZBrush artists that still to this day sculpt hard surface. They do an organic approach to get their shapes blocked in, and then they ultimately turn around and then they start manipulating it using ZRemesher to getting a lot of that stuff locked in the way that they would want it to be. So it just depends, honestly, on what you're wanting to achieve as far as the look and what's easier or easiest for you as the artist to get the job done as comfortably as possible. So like I switch between techniques all the time. Like, you know, for example, the block out method, which is how a lot of different artists will work. When you're developing a character, you'll kind of block things out. Not everybody does the block out method, but I do. And then also too, I'm doing a character right now where I'm not blocking it out at all. I'm literally just approaching it from a sculptor's point of view by just throwing clay at the problem and then refining said clay as I work on it. So it really is, it's not as black and white as do this because of X, Y, and Z. Now, this is a little bit harder to say with procedural techniques because procedural techniques clearly have a procedural approach. But for the most part, you get to decide, which is my whole point here, you get to decide as the artist, do I approach this in a procedural method? Do I approach this in an organic method? Does it even matter? Am I losing sleep over, you know, nothing? And yeah, that's what you kind of get to, what you get to decide. You know, at the end of the day, if you are working on environments, as an example, like my buddy Rodolfo does, if you work with environments, then typically you might have a lot more procedural techniques you rely on because it gets the job done faster and effectively. Whereas you might, however, you know, when you're doing characters, you might just organically do everything, including the weapons, because that keeps you in the right frame of mind that you're looking for. So it really just depends. And that's what makes it fun. Same answer I give, by the way, when we're discussing when should I move out of Dynamesh and move into ZRemesher. Well, the first thing I'll ask you is, well, are you going to be rigging this character? If you're going to be rigging the character, then the answer is, you know, get into ZRemesher whenever you can, get some retopology done, make it look clean, make it look fun, you know, get it in there quickly. Are you going to 3D print it? Then it doesn't matter. Ultimately, until retopo phase for characters anyway, guess what? It doesn't matter. It really is up to you. And that freedom sometimes can lead to having a little bit of anxiety feelings on that because you want to have a plan going in. And so what I say is, in order to answer this question effectively, the long-winded answer boils down to create a pipeline that is working for you. So for example, I use Dynamesh for most of my work. Whether I block out or not, it doesn't matter. I choose to go ahead and decide, am I going to block out or am I going to sketch? Like today we're sketching. So if I'm going to sketch, great. I'm just going to use Dynamesh for a long haul of it. And then when I'm ready to move it to the next phase, then I will go ahead and choose when to ZRemesh it. So I always go Dynamesh, ZRemesh, and then I work my way that way. It's just helpful for me to kind of get in there and just do what I need to get done. And so, but again, I've known artists who literally just use Dynamesh and then they send it off at the very end when it's all said and done to then get ZRemeshed or, manually retopoed and stuff like that. So it's a workflow thing and you get to develop that. And if what you could do to help develop it a little bit easier is either talk to somebody like myself or any other professional artist that you might know that is coming in and just saying like, this is what I do, and see if that works for you, because it may not always work for you, but you kind of see what other people are doing and you pick and choose what works best, and then you get to decide ultimately like, oh yeah, this technique works, I'll use this, I'll use that, and you kind of just develop your own pipeline, your own structure, so then it's ultimately just a little bit easier for you to then just stay consistent with your work, which is ultimately what you want. You want consistency over time. You don't want to be like, you know, trying to develop too many things at once. You don't want to be all over the place is what I'm trying to say. You want to make things a lot more consistent for you. And so developing a pipeline for you in the beginning works, and then you can modify that pipeline further with like jobs and such when you get more comfortable and you get into that field where it's like, oh, I want to work for Disney. Well, this is what Disney quote does, right? Those things are what will eventually help guide you to a professional stuff. But for the most part, like I started out in freelance, so I just needed to develop a workflow that worked for me and gave me consistent results all the time. And that, in my opinion, is more important than trying to figure out, oh, do I do this every time? Do what's best for you. Now I'm just repeating myself, sorry, but hopefully that's helpful. And there's no wrong way, okay? I say this a lot. There's no wrong way to approach a piece of artwork. It's your artwork. It's your design. Like, you know, if you're doing it for a client, it's your client's design, but you ultimately are the one who's designing it, so you get to have a say in how that happens. Okay, let's actually get that looking. Trying to shape this eye a little bit as we go through here. What's cool is, like, if you get into props, like my buddy Leonard, if you're still here, he worked in props for years and years, and all sorts of like things that were practical. And he'll be the first to tell you, it doesn't matter what tool you use. Like, he uses ZBrush, but he uses all the other stuff in the world too. So it depends on the field you want to go in as well. Which I got into toys first and foremost, and then did game props in the background. So just depends. Just depends. There we go. There we go. Trying to get a little bit more of an eyelid shape here. Knowing that the fat pad, the way the eye and the eyebrow and everything works, is just super good. And then we need to do a step back approach. So right now I have this top lid too far forward. Eyes step back. So we're always getting this kind of shape where you have a step back here. Actually, let's go here like this. So you always have like a boom, boom, boom. Even on humans, you have this kind of staircase. So we want to make sure that the eye is pulled back enough and lifted enough to make sense with how that goes. And then we want the lower lid, which if you look at a human, I've 3D scanned a few people, there is, including myself, so there is a lip. Your eyelid has a lip to it, and we want to retain that lip. That's why you'll see a lot of statues with that kind of ledge. Okay, great. I like doing weird stuff like this when I can't think. Let's see. When you did the tongue, you did a line and were able to bend the mesh along where the line was manipulated. What tool is that? Oh, great question. So that is actually the Transpose line. So if you open up the gizmo like I have here, hitting W to turn it on, Q to turn it off, or you just come up here and say move, and then you hit Y. This gives you a transpose line. This line existed long before the gizmo in ZBrush. This is how people would actually come over here and do a move, rotate, right, or even scale. Boom, boom, boom. This is how you used to do it. Well, a trick is that if I wanted to, like, again, come here with the tongue and then turn this on, if I wanted to, I can actually, there's a trick with this transpose line where if I press and hold Alt and grab that white line in the middle, it actually will pin these two corners here and allow me to then move that. If I don't press Alt, then I'm just moving everything as a whole because the middle one moves the entire piece. So holding Alt kind of pins these two areas and allows me to do this. Whoop, 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 whoop. So yeah, super helpful. And then to get rid of the transpose line, go back to the gizmo, you just hit Y again, and then you're good to go. Yeah, gizmo bend curve is a good tool. Absolutely. There are other ways too. Like if you wanted to do it with a gizmo, you absolutely can. One of the things is that if you press and hold spacebar, you'll see here that focal shift is set to -100. That's because there's a change to the gizmo. Right now, the gizmo itself, right, just does a 1-to-1. So I just grab it, move it, doesn't really matter. Woo, 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 perfect. If I press and hold Alt and I try to do anything, it unlocks the gizmo, which, because it's tied to that directly. But here, if I go to focal shift and I start moving stuff, you can see here as I move this down, it's now coming through and it's doing a soft move. As I move this up, it's actually bending it. So then what I could do is mask off this section, kind of soften this up, and I could do something similar to that, really mask that up, and then also too, I could come in and really push that focal length up by like 100. But see, that's going to be like too much. So here, so I could do something more like that if I wanted to. That's pretty cool as well, but I honestly just really like the transpose line one. It's a little bit faster to me, and it just makes the most sense, and I just like it. There we go. Okay, so now here we need to create some gums because the teeth are a little bit all over the place right now. So here we're gonna go ahead and I'm going to push this up like that, but we need to create some gums on this guy because you don't have any gums. So we're gonna go ahead and just come through here, and I'm going to quickly paint a mask, say something like that. And I just want the mask to pretty much mostly cover where everything is going to be intersecting. I'm gonna harden that line, just Control Alt and tap like that. And then we're going to come here to Subtool, and we're going to go to Extract. We're going to say Extract, which that is going to show us the kind of thickness that we have. And we want this to be a little bit thicker, so Extract, say something like that, and hit Accept. And then we can just clear that mask, because it always comes up with some sort of mask. And now we have some gums here. And then we can just make sure Dynamesh is still turned on, which it is not currently, and that's totally fine. But now we have our gums. And now we can come through, start cleaning and manipulating these up a bit. Wrong way. I want to move this up like that. Pull that down. Pull this in. And we'll start manipulating the teeth a little bit. Let's see here. I love how I explain help to people. Thanks. Yeah, it's always straightforward and honest. I try. I try. Let's see here. That's super helpful. Sometimes we're all lost in creation, so it's nice to know that every approach is good. Absolutely. I have a question too. Maybe not technical, but you're adding details now. How do you know when to stop? So I'm not necessarily adding details right now. So this is still, okay, so I don't count this as details because this is still the blackout phase. So I still am basically relying on my primitives shapes to read well so that it looks good the way I need it to look. Because it's a tomato, I can't really rely on the silhouette so much at first because there's just not enough information there. And I need to understand how things are. So I'm kind of just more roughly scribing things in and treating that as my blockout. I have not moved to secondary forms in any way, shape, or form, and tertiary is far from my thought process, but it's more about just getting the right read of the character first and foremost. And because it's a fruit, it really is just more of like just kind of getting it in there and calling it good enough so that way I'm satisfied with the results and I can move on and I can quickly see what it is that I'm, quote, doing. So that's kind of the idea of it. So just like I said, think of it more of like I'm more just trying to feel the character out. But great question. And here I'm going to use move infinite so then I can infinitely readjust this because the teeth are relatively the same because I copied them, right? So I'm going to get it in close enough and then here We're also going to cut this side right about here like this, say boop, cuts, and then redo that. Get that in, say something like that. Now what's cool here is that I can see that the teeth need to be a little bit more of a proper U shape, because even in human anatomy, the mouth, like think of your teeth as like a horseshoe, right? It's that type of shape. So what I want to do here actually, so I want to turn off symmetry for a second, make sure that's dead center. I'm going to go ahead and actually turn on the pizza box. I'm going to grab just the teeth and the gums, and then I'm going to literally pull this in a little bit more like that. So that's just going to then move everything over and kind of put that a little bit more embedded into the mouth. And we can go just a little bit more, actually. Say something like that. This will give me more work room as well. And then here, if I feel like this is not symmetrical, which it's not, you see here, like I ruined that. So I just go down here to modify. So geometry, modify topology, mirror and weld, boom. And we're back. And that is easy enough. And that could have gotten manipulated when I was using the move infinite because of just the angle I was at. But either way, this works out close enough. We'll just get a big brush and we'll kind of pull that in. Okay. Let's get in there, hit save. Do you design on the fly or do you use concept? So I mostly use concept. I do have a bunch of Killer Tomato stuff just floating over here that I like glance at, but this is one of those characters or designs that you really don't need a concept for. It's a tomato with eyeballs and mouth and a tongue. So you don't really need a concept if you kind of understand the anatomy and the shapes of a tomato, and teeth and eyes and stuff like that. So if you understand the basics of it, you don't really need one. So I'm kind of making it up on the side, but there's a ton of reference and I think it'll be fine either way. Typically for big projects, I will use reference to get an idea of how something is built, but not necessarily, rely on that unless, and this is a big one, I'm told that I need to follow the reference, which, by the way, happens to a lot of us 3D artists all the time, where they're like, hey, just FYI, we need to make this a reality. So because you need to make this a reality, it now becomes my job to ensure that the reference is legit. So it just all depends. But typically, yeah, reference is king. I always follow reference. I always have some sort of reference, but I don't always rely on it unless I have to. And that comes with time and experience. I used to rely on it all the time, and you'll hear me on my, if you go to my old YouTube channel, which it's still active, I just haven't posted anything in a while. If you go to my YouTube channel, like Ira Sculpts, and then you see some of my old stuff, you'll hear me say all the time, reference is king. And I still swear by that. It's just, you eventually don't need to rely on reference as much the more experience and practice you have. So for those artists that do say oh, I don't use reference at all, and it's true, there are artists that do that, those artists typically have enough experience to know that they don't need to constantly follow it so much. So it makes it a little bit, makes it easier for them because they've already done it enough. Does that make sense? Okay, we'll give them a little bit of a dome. Let's pop this back on. Boom, boom, boom. Perfect. Okay. You're definitely going to want to get... Okay, we need to fix this stem because the stem is gross. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to follow the shadow because the shadow knows. Boop, say something like that. That should be fine. And let's actually fix this guy. So I'm going to come over here, focus on this guy for 2 seconds, and then let's go to geometry. And then I'm just going to make sure everything is a single poly group. And then let's go to ZRemesher, polish groups, adapt, and let's just redo this shape. Looks so angry. Yeah. I'm going to be going for angry happy. Wish you success. See this later. Absolutely. Thanks, Labra. Use extract in the. I've used using extraction in the past. I've had an issue where I made a second ghost mesh inside the extraction, and when I started to manipulate it, I would see the faces only viewable from certain angles poking out. Any idea what the heck was happening? Ooh, that's okay. Well, let me ask you a question. Did it look like this? Was that the ghost effect you were talking about? Or that's A, or B, you had something like this. Let's see if I can affect it. Maybe you had something more like this, and then you were trying to affect, and maybe you didn't see this. It's possible. Or you had something like this, where you extracted, you split stuff off, and then you had something like this. I'd have to see it exactly, depending on your verbiage, but depending on which one you say, if it was any of those, then that's a pretty simple. It's a pretty simple adjustment, because that's just where your mask will fall. By the way, this looks like a turtle head. It could be. It's not though. Soon it's gonna look different when I color it. I mean, we're only an hour in, and I've been talking a lot. Yeah. Okay. Well, here actually let's fix the stem real quick, and then let's go from there. So first things first, I'm gonna go ahead here, and we're just gonna blow this guy up, and I'm going to shrink this guy down. Chop that a little bit more. You see how I just dynameshed when I couldn't dynamesh? Good job, Ian. We see this edge loop here. This part's bothering me. So this is where a lot of times I could fight ZRemesher and try to get it 100% where I want it to be. Or what I could do is I could just come through here, dynamesh this, reshape it, then ZRemesh it as I see fit, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So there's this solid edge loop here, and I'm just going to come through here. I'm going to reshape this completely. This is why I love Dynamesh, because Dynamesh really helps me just kind of see the shape of something. And then I can ZRemesh it and have ZRemesher respect that shape, which is way more important to me than anything else. So here's something like a quick inflate here. So this is where, like, I'm not trying to get it smooth in any way, shape, or form. I'm just trying to get it looking relatively kind of how I want it to look. Yeah, say something like that, that's fine. Now we can focus on getting things smooth, and we can actually keep this detail. So I'm gonna come up here, add a history marker at the top of my history by holding Control and tapping. And then from there, I'm gonna go ahead and say, okay, now let's ZRemesh. And let's just keep groups down to 0, so that way it doesn't smooth it. Adaptive size down to 0, so it doesn't have different quads. And I'll just say ZRemesh. I have to animate this. I do, Casey. Absolutely have to animate this. You're 1,000% correct. 100%. It also curls up when I attempt to move the curve. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Question. Sometimes when I use the curve tool, I activate snap to surfaces with depth 40 and draw out the curve. Okay. The curve does not snap. It generates inside of my geo. What would be the solution to this? Give me 1 second and I will try to repeat said thing. What brush are you using? Just the curve tool. Just the curve tool. Okay. So here, let's go half, half, half. Get something like that. And then here what I'm going to do, I'm okay with this being funky dunky. I'm just going to divide a few times. And then let's go up here to project history. Yeah, it's down here somewhere. Project history, boom. That's good. Now I can work with subdivisions. Kind of come through here, do a light smooth at a low subdivision. So this is where smoothing, going back to that smoothing question real quick, or keeping a smooth shape. So you want things to be smooth. This is where subdivision is king, because you can step down to different levels of detail. So subdivision level 1, think of that as your primary shapes and detail. Subdivision level 2 and 3, think of that as like your secondary, right? Subdivision level 4 and up, where you're really starting to get into the hundreds of thousands to the millions of vertices, that's like your tertiary. And so to keep things nice and smooth, you can bounce between your subdivisions, and you can use different brushes to get different effects and different intensities of said effect. So this is how you can make things look really smooth, by stepping down and doing a smooth relax on the lower level of that resolution, and then step back up and smooth those as well. So then you can actually start controlling how smooth something looks. And then you can repeat from there. So going back to that question for just 2 seconds. This is where subdivision is king, and a lot of game studios today use the low resolution as their mesh that they'll animate, in the high resolution where all the detail is, and you're just baking low to high. Okay. Don't really know what I'm finessing there. That makes no sense. So, but now we can come over here. Maybe scale this up a little bit and get this kind of stem falling off this way. We want the stem to be relatively interesting. And then here I can actually make this, I can scale this up a little bit like that. There you go. Okay. All right. So let's, this is giving Applejack's mascot to me. Perfect. All right. So let's try that curve tool thing real fast. Let's see if I can help you out with that. Now let's go ahead and hit save. Let's pick this guy right here. Okay. So you said you used the curve tool. When you mean curve tool, are you talking about curve, which tool? Curve tube. Okay, that's what I thought. Not multi-tube, just tube. Perfect. So this guy right here. Whee! Okay. So, yep, it's functional so far. All right, so let's come up here to our, nope, there you go, Ian. You could do it, you could do it. Stroke. Stroke, stroke, stroke. And then let's see here. Hold on 1 second. So, what did you say that you did? You got the curve tool. You activated snap to surface. And so you're adjusting the brush, actually. Give me 1 second. And then you also did the depth. Let's do depth 40 real fast. You in depth 40, hold on 1 second. Depth positive or negative? I guess it doesn't really matter. You can go positive. So you'd have something like that, which then would sit on top of the thing. And then hold on, snap to surface. Doop-a-doop-boo. Oh, unless you're talking about, wait, depth here? Like depth in the picker? Sorry, I'm trying to replicate your thing, so I want to make sure. Are you using depth as in this depth or picker depth? Plus 40 to be on the surface, so you're using this depth. Okay. I also don't want spotlight projection turned on. That's totally fine. Modifiers. Oh. Yeah, in brush. Okay, great. And then snap to surface. No, not surface noise. Hold on 1 second. I don't usually turn that on with this brush, so give me a second. snap. Boom, there we go. Okay, so you have it like this. Okay. Your question is, it does not snap and generates inside my geometry. Well, it should only go inside the geometry if it's negative. I'm not seeing that do it on positive. It would do it on negative because that would make sense. But even then, I'm actually, it doesn't really matter. It's not giving me. Oh, there you go. Okay, so that is generating inside. Depth 40, okay. Whee! So I'm getting inconsistent results depending on where I snap to. Oh, hold on, I know why. Okay, hold on. I'm getting inconsistent results because I do have history. Okay, so here's the thing. If you have history up here, you're going to get inconsistent results. And that's one of my main issues. So if you have history stored on the brush on top, get rid of that. That's first and foremost. Now, there we go. Yes, that's giving me, yeah, okay, that's giving me consistent results. Okay, so if you have stored history somewhere else in the world, like this, and then you come over here, you're gonna get inconsistent results because it's trying to identify your history spot here, which is what I have. If I get rid of that and I come over here, now it's snapping. And it's snapping consistently every time. So, do you have history turned on? If you have your history turned on in, like, if you have a stored history spot, get rid of that. Attack of the sun-dried tomato. I need something to drink. Hold on one second. So that one 3D artist, what I'd say is go and try that. I have a slider, but I don't store history. Don't use that function yet. Oh, interesting. Well, then I don't know. What I could say is maybe try it again. Open up ZBrush, not on a project. Just open up ZBrush. Open up, you know, like come up here to the light box, and then just open up ZBrush without loading a project. Then open up one of these projects and try it with your settings and see if that changes anything. If you get consistent results on, let's say, like this project sphere, then it's possible that you have a corruption somewhere in your main file. Or you have a stored morph target. If you use those, if you have a stored morph target on something else that could be affecting it, maybe. That's a wild guess, but that could be it. The other aspect you could do, the picker won't really matter. Yeah, no, I would say, what version of ZBrush are you in? That's the other question I have for you. Right, no, absolutely. And that's what I'm seeing when I see it on my side. With your settings, as long as I don't have subdivisions. So let me, if I don't have subdivisions, it's snapping to the surface. This is what the result you'll get. And now the depth here, depth 40, will depend how far that's snapping into your surface, because this is controlling your depth. So you will get some sort of depth the further down you go, but it is snapping to the surface. So what I am seeing is this is working as functional depending on here. So this depth here, by the way, is going to, you'll just need to play with it to make sure that that's what's happening, but it is going to be snapping to that surface. I put this back at 0. Boom, 0, and I snap this out. What it's snapping to is the vertice It's snapping to the vertex I start at, which the magic of ZBrush is right up here, this picker. This picker saying once Z is just wherever you start the stroke. It doesn't matter after that. So that stroke will depend on there, which I'm sure you already know that aspect to it. But it is snapping to the surface. It's just where on the surface depends on how big the vertex is. You're in 2020 4.0.2. Try to update to 0.0.3. You have an update on you. Try to update that and see if that is. It could have been a bug that was not caught and then patched later, which is possible because I'm in 2020 4.0.3. So that is the only difference between you and I. So I would say maybe try doing that. Maybe try upgrading or updating. And then that should be, that could fix your problem too. It could be a bug in the version you're in. It's the only other thing I have for you at the moment. If I think of another thing, I will let you know. But that, it seems to be working as functional. So far. Wish I had a better answer, sorry. Okay, now here's what we need to do. We actually need to get like a little bit of a leaf thing happening here. So we're going to pull this here. I think I might be miscommunicating. I was trying to draw out tendons, okay, on a hand, and I need the entirety of the curve to be on the surface. Oh, you're right. I was misunderstanding you. Okay, well then you need to change the picker, actually. So if you want to change the actual picker, this will change your life. Okay, so right now, as I have it, and let's just go turn off symmetry. If I were to draw like this, it's only going to snap to the first part, my origin point, right? If you want everything, and I mean everything, to be consistent to where you draw, come up here to picker and go to continuous Z. Now, if I draw this around, it's going to attach all the way there. So yeah, that's what you want. So welcome to how ZBrush works. The picker here, and I'm being serious, the picker here, this menu, is exactly what every brush in ZBrush fully functions on. Everything here. And this depth, most brushes are set to once Z, which allows it to look at the one point. Yeah, you need everything on there, turn on continuous Z. And now everywhere you draw, ZBrush is now updating every point you hover over. And if I go off, you'll see here that it trails off to the center of that mesh. But it is literally following every vertex that I do. And then I can adjust the curve with my brush size as typical. And that's what you want. So yeah, sorry, we were definitely miscommunicating, but that's okay. We got through it. Sorry, I thought you were saying that it was not working. And I'm like, well, then update. That makes sense. This is why, for me, I'm such a visual person. So yeah, it definitely takes me a minute sometimes to like see it in my head. Okay. Awesome. Yay. So that being said, here, what we're going to do is actually we're going to solo this out. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our mask lasso. And here we're going to make our hair. And of course, here, notice we've masked a lot of things. So I want to unmask a lot of that. I'm going to come in here like this. Okay, cool. Perfect. Sounds good. And now we're going to come in here. Let's do our quick extract. Now, I'm going to do something different this time. I am going to go to thickness 0. And I'm going to say extract and accept. And that's because I want single-sided geometry for this hair. I don't need the thickness. It's just going to complicate life for me. And I already don't need that. So as you can tell, my voice is still not 100% back. But so what we're going to do here is use this mask, soften this up a bit. Come over here to deformation, and then we're going to polish our features. Give us a little bit more clarity, or smoothness rather. And then come up here to geometry, and then we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to hit same because it's only 15,000. It's not super intense. I'm going to start with same thing. My settings are always the same, guys. It's always the same. Keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, adapt to size down to 0, keep adapt on. And then sometimes if I need to follow creasing, I'll turn on keep creases, but outside of that, that's all you need. This is it. This is the world in which we work in. It's just consistent. And I always start higher and then I step down and say, yeah, let's go lower. And it just allows me to have a nice, clean, smooth time when I'm dealing with ZRemesher, right? And then here you can use I can now use my move to get something done that I want. And now here, I'm just gonna go ahead and actually hit D for dynamics. And then I'm gonna go to dynamic subdivision, and then we're going to add some thickness, just like this. And we can also add some smoothness and some segments. So this is now the mesh and what I'm looking at here. And actually segments is a little much. So let's go here just to 2 segments, and then I'm gonna go ahead and apply this. So now I get this guy. Yes! And actually, let's go here. I'm going to show you a little trick. I want this to kind of feel a little bit more organic. So I'm actually going to take segments down to 0. And then here, let's go to ZModeler. Come in here, multiple edge loops, interactive elevation, keep polygroups. Boom. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this out. And then I'm going to do this. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Something like that. Yep, that works. And then if I hide the stem, just down here, perfect. If I hide the stem, come over here, now I turn on real dynamics. I may not need to do this actually. I'm not gonna do that. That's actually too much work. It's gonna do unnecessary work. We don't need to get into that. But now, what I can do, take this section here, I can actually go up here to brush, and let's depth at 20. Okay, great. Depth at 20. Let's go to auto mask, and I want to turn back face mask on. Now let's just give this a little bit of direction. Say something like that. You're welcome. Yeah, reading text is hard to understand sometimes, but I'm glad we solved it. I'm glad we came to it. That's perfect. Yeah, 4 years nonstop in ZBrush and continuing setting is great. Yeah, continue Z is perfect. Yeah. About smooth a mask? You mean like, you know, well, there's more blur. There's more blur, and then whatchamacallit? Yeah, words, Ian. There's more blur and sharpen, which I guess blur could be considered smooth, but not really. I guess it's a little bit different. Okay, great. Okay, now here I have the main shape, and I did do ZRemesher for this to give me what the results I want, but this is a case of where I still want to manipulate some of this stuff and clean this up exactly how I want, because it's not 100%. It's also kind of, it's a little sloppy and a little all over the place. So this is a clear time in which it's like, okay, I got the shape that I want, but ultimately I do want, to be able to actually continue to cut this up. So I'm gonna Dynamesh this one more time so I can just quickly manipulate and edit this further, which happens for me. I go back and forth until I'm fully satisfied. But in this case, not that way. I want to select Lasso. In this case, this will actually work out well because this will just kind of help me finish up the refinement a bit. Okay. Okay, I think I don't want this lip here. I don't want that lip either. Okay, great. This kind of helps just do what I want to do. Okay, let's actually go to our move brush here and let's go to our curve, AccuCurve. Bring a little bit more point to some of these. Okay, great. And then here, we'll just scale this down just a teeny bit. And then let's go move. Now the fun part is we can kind of curl some of these. They don't have to all just be stuck. Okay, say something like that. Can use the picker setting so that the mask only does the surface, not through the entire mesh, or you'd be better off just using the lasso, then unpick. So the lasso goes through the entire mesh. Yes, that's what the lasso has a depth infinite approach to it, which is why you have all these different types of masking and stuff like that. Mask pen, mask curve, all that's like mask pen here is obviously designed to just mask the surface or is wherever the brush itself goes. But then yeah, mask lasso is designed to lasso and do everything. It's the same approach as like this. If I were to cut through here and do this mask like that, it's gonna mask everything in depth. It's just how the masking system works itself, which is why we have other approaches. For example, if you had different polygroups, so here, let's do this. If we had different polygroups, then polygroup selection allows you to mask that stuff off. So, which is why you have different options. But currently, that's how this works. And then to answer the last question, yes, this is a character from Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. It's not an exact character. It's more of a loosely inspired by. In fact, let's actually make this a little bit more official by getting some actual color on here. So here, let's go here, color fill. Boop, just come up here, fill object. Let's get a nice kind of red color. Say boom, something like that. For the gums, let's get kind of a pinkish color. Say something like that. Maybe a little bit more red, a little bit more pink. Let's go fill. I put it over here, and yet I'm still manipulating. That's so funny. And then tongue. Yep, sounds pretty good. So yeah, something like that, a little bit. Okay, we don't need that anymore. There, now it looks a little bit more tomatoey. There's still stuff I want to do to it, but let's actually get some eyes in here. Now here is something you could do as well. And this is something that I actually tend to do a lot. If you, with these eyes, want to have more control of your edge loops, right? Or you want to work lower than this, then you can place different spheres in there. One of the things I could do is if I go up to this guy right here, I want to center this just so that I know it's there. And then with the gizmo activated, I can put these guys like that. And then let's go ahead. Now use these spheres. I'm going to center these back. So just replace the current eyes. Now that got rid of the material, but I have edge loops that I can work with that are a little bit easier and going to give me more of the result that I want. So here now, I can come, it's not hard to put material in, but now we can come through here and say, you know what, let's do this. So let's add an edge loop, say right about here. Okay. Actually, let's not do that yet. Let's come in. Let's add these guys right in here. I'm going to come over here and mask this off. So here's another masking tip for you. You can come in here and mask all your polygroups. You could push this in a little bit if you'd want. You can even, yeah, that should be fine right there. Should be pretty good. You can even add in an edge loop like that. Maybe come through here real quick. Mask just this one off just a bit. Kind of push that in just a teeny bit. So get a little bit more of an actual eye itself, like this. And then it depends if you want to do a realistic eye or not. If you want to do somewhat of a realistic eye, we can get our pupils, decide how big we want our pupils to be. Let's come in here like this, get rid of those. Come over here, let's do this as Q-mesh. Get a different color. There you go. Get something that looks a little bit like that. Now we have some nasty faceting down here at the bottom, which we don't want. So let's just go ahead and add in some proper, or at least a little bit better geometry on that. Now we have a bit of an eye that we can work with. So what are so angry about the tomatoes so angry about? You'd have to see the show. You'd have to see it. It's an old show too. I love that show though. I love that show. Okay. Now that we have our polygroups though, what we're going to do is we're going to, no, not hit that one. Control D and actually get some topology put in here so we can start painting this a little bit. So I'm going to grab this guy and this guy right here like this. I'm just going to fill this with true black. So you'll hear me say a million times, never use true black when you need to cast the shadow on something, because true black will forever look infinitely deep. But when we're talking about eyeballs, eyes, you can't see into the pupils any further. It just looks black. It's just super dark, it looks black, and it looks infinite. And this is where the exception of the rule comes into play. Now I'm selecting, there we go, right there. Okay, so now here what we're gonna do is we can paint this, we'll just call this orange, like a red color. Boop, say something like that. Yeah, there we go. And then let's actually give it that toy plastic material. So let's go to material, say here, toy plastic, and then let's go to skin shader 4 for the rest of it. There we go. Say something like that. Okay. Oh, okay. So check this out. So I forgot to have symmetry turned on, which is totally fine. So easiest fix here, I just come over to deformation, mirror that whole thing, and then mirror and weld it with symmetry turned off. Boop, fixed. It's easy enough. Okay. And then let's give him a little bit of an actual like mouth bag or equivalent of. We obviously can't go too deep because then we're going to thin out parts. But this will be somewhat close enough for what we're doing. Okay, and then we can smooth them out. Let's go BDS. Here we go. Something like that. Okay. It's looking pretty cool. He's still very rough, but we can clean him up now. Do you need separate polygroups to apply multiple materials? No, you don't need separate polygroups to apply multiple materials. You can apply multiple materials just by painting them as well or masking off and doing it that way. Probably angry that people keep calling them vegetables. Yeah, I know, they're a fruit. What the heck? How dare they? Okay, here's the thing too. I'm going to go up to render, and I want to see this with a little bit less. It's too flat. So I want to actually go to preview AO and actually turn this on. And this will actually just give me a little bit of shadow work everywhere we need it to be. Okay. So now what we could do is we could start getting into some of the fun stuff here. So first things first, I want to be able to ZRemesh him and get him smooth because he looks rough in a bad way, right? And so earlier somebody was like, hey, how do I quote do a thing where it's, you know, things are smooth or things are looking a little bit better. So we're going to move into that stage next. So let's go ahead and hit save. And then I'm going to hit save next because I did a blockout or blockout _001. So now moving into _002 because this is my initial blockout. I would call this blockout done because it has everything on the canvas that I need to have on the canvas, but I don't have everything that I want there. This is just enough to keep going, which is totally fine. So now we're going to go ahead and ZRemesh. So we're going to come up here to the top. Again, pressing and hold Control and storing a temporary history will allow me to now come over here to Geometry, ZRemesher, and we can ZRemesh. And again, we're going to start somewhere like around, I like to start high. I like to start between 15, because this is only 140,000 active points, so it's not crazy, but I still start high, 15 to 20,000 total points in general is where I like to start. You can always step down from there. We can also do ourselves a favor real fast. And I do this a lot where I'll go to Dynamesh, I'll actually increase the resolution and get that up so we could do like a little bit of smooth on there. Turn that on. Let's start with that first. Great, perfect. Give a little bit of just overall look here. And then what we can do is we can actually come in here. So let's mask off how we want our geometry to flow. So, and I'll do this sometimes too. So I want the eyes to have enough information for the polygroup to wrap around in a certain way. So say something like this. I can sharpen that up a little bit. And actually, let's go bigger than this. It's not a human face. So we could easily do something like this and Control W, which will give me this guy right here. It's gonna it's gonna look weird for a second. That's totally fine. And then let's actually grab the mass lasso. Let's come in here. Let's grab all of this. Sharpen that. Give that a different poly group and see if that helps us out here. Kind of guiding how we want our polygroups to go, and then we can do ourselves one better and come over here and we can polish these groups, make them as sharp as possible. Now this is where I have the actual history stored up. So that history is going to allow me to call back all the details. It doesn't matter what I'm manipulating now, as long as there's enough information at the end to capture said detail on the project back. So now that we have this, and it's looking pretty interesting, I'm going to turn off Dynamesh. We're going to come over here, ZRemesher. Actually, let's go a little bit higher. Now I'm going at like 35. And then keep groups, blah, 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 and then let's go ahead and do this. Do you need separate poly? Oh, no, yeah, no. Okay, great. Now, sometimes it's possible, and of course, I just noticed right down here at the bottom that I didn't fully mask this off. So let's do this again. There we go. Perfect. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Come over here. Polish by groups, polish by groups. Fantastic. History repeats itself. Let's try that again. This will give me, hopefully, some good edge loop control, or at least close enough. What we're looking for is not final topology. We're looking for edge loop that we can actually work on and give us good control. So, okay. This is 58,000 across the whole thing, but let's see how low can we go. Okay, that's about half, which is pretty cool. All right, right here is a little funky, so we can actually fix this mesh. So I can actually come over here and let's do, on the point action, let's do a stitch. I want to stitch this point and this point. Do a little bit of a relaxed smooth, which will give me more of a proper pole right there. And that's actually not too bad. That's actually pretty cool. It's only 24,000 for this whole thing. So that's not too bad at all. Okay, cool. So now we can subdivide. All right, let's look at this real quick. Okay. Okay, so we can actually stitch this part here. Okay, we actually could fix this. Let's do that. Let's come over here. Let's take these two things. Let's just do a quick delete. Boop. That sounds good. And then I do want to stitch these two points together. Okay, this should be fine there. Let's come over here, move. Okay, maybe let's stitch. Stitch. Yeah, that's actually not too bad. Okay, that works. It's not the best, so maybe what we could do now is we can actually then say, you know what, let's keep it the same, but let's ZRemesh one more time and see if that fixes. Boom, that actually does a good job fixing it. Did I ruin my poles here? I did, so that's okay. So let's go back to our ZModeler real fast, and then let's stitch this side to this side, and then do a relaxed smooth. All right, there, that's a lot better. That gives me better control of that, which is perfect. We can hit save real quick. And then let's just subdivide a few times. And then here we're going to go ahead. I actually really like that color. That's pretty cool. And then we're going to go ahead and say project history. Say, yep, go ahead and add that color to it, which is totally fine. And actually, it's too bright for me. I don't like this red, actually. I do like that more deep red like that. There we go. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, feels a little bit more natural. There we go. We can take this stem down. It's too big. Let's go ahead and fill this. Okay, great. So now we have that, and now we have this information right here that we have. We can come in, now we can start smoothing this. So now, because we have subdivisions, we could start smoothing what is technically the higher right now, but it's not as destructive. So I could start smoothing this. I can also literally just start stepping down and smoothing like I mentioned before, but I am going to go with a little bit of a rough grittiness to this, but I could step down. Again, start smoothing this stuff out here like this. A little smooth relax. Step up a little bit, smooth that down. Step up again, do a light smooth. Yeah, there you go. It's looking a little bit better. And now because I have subdivisions on, it's going to capture detail a lot better. Not curve mode, not sculptress mode, and hit only everything that you need. There we go. So now I can start refining a lot of this. Now I can move into secondaries if I'm so inclined to do so. But I'm still cleaning up my refined shapes. Say something like that. All right, and now we hit save. Okay. This is definitely how I can tell that I'm not feeling 100% still, because I definitely still feel just like drained, but nonetheless having fun while doing it, which is always good. And so you could still make some sculptural changes even when you're ZRemeshed. The thing you want to remember is that you can't rebuild your topology in a subdivision state. So you do want to be careful with how much you push and pull something. So I use smooth relax a lot when I'm sculpting on a subdivided mesh, because it just helps me stay a little bit more consistent and it keeps the material looking clean, but I can still sculpt and I can still tear away. You just don't want to make drastic changes, but you could still definitely sculpt and get a little bit more refinement as you move forward. So don't think if you move into the subdivisions that you can't sculpt on it anymore. You're just trying not to push it too drastically in one or the other direction. Yeah, absolutely. Not a problem. Looks like a grandma teeth or grandma mouth without the teeth. Yeah, exactly. Let's see what happens if we... There you go. I'm gonna gum you to death. Oh, good. Yeah. Not a problem. Yeah, love this, giving me ideas to work with. Yeah, a lot of times, dude, sometimes I'm just not in the mood for a big project. So I like to do pretty funky, odd stuff. And this stuff just makes me happy. You know, it's actually one of the things I loved about like when Shane Olson, when he was teaching me, he always liked to say that's just like, if it makes me smile, I should sculpt that thing. And I always loved that. That was like a go-to for him. And so when I'm feeling kind of funky and I don't want to get on a big project or I don't want to do a big personal project, which, let's be honest, guys, that happens a lot. That happens more than people like to admit, I think. You know, you're feeling burnt out, you're feeling stress of life, anxiety, whatever, like too many things are happening all at once and you feel like you're just drowning. And then you're like, oh, I should be doing a big project. I then preach, don't do the big projects. In fact, if anything, do a small project, but don't change your pipeline. Just because you're doing a small project doesn't mean you need to change your pipeline. You're just doing something that you can have fun with, that ultimately you're not super stressed on. Like you're just enjoying, you know, you're enjoying the process. Because we all got into this for fun, you know. And even if it is your job, like your day-to-day, you should still have fun with it. So I like to do stuff like this. Just makes me happy. Okay, we're gonna add a little bit of inflate to these sections right here. And then we're gonna kind of take away a little bit and show some of these pearly whites of his that will be very much not white soon enough. Okay, let's do the same thing down here. Let's actually increase the resolution a bit. Kind of smooth some of this stuff down. Here's the fun part. This lip right here of his literal lip. Let's actually kind of bow this out a little bit. Like, let's bring this down. I want to give him a little bit of a fun expression. Okay, show a little bit more of those gums here. Also, just kind of want to pull this away. Also, do I have curve? I do. I have AccuCurve still turned on. You just tell, it just feels different. Okay. There we go. All right. Let's grab this guy here. Let's just blow this up. Say something like that. And before we make too many changes, I do like to just kind of put my characters off over here in space. What we got? It's 12. Honestly, I might call it a little early, guys, because I'm just starting to feel a little tired still, a little exhausted. But definitely want to finish this character later today. So I'll probably work on that a bit more. Let's do a little bit of painting real fast. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to go with a kind of deep purple, blue, kind of gray. A little bit more towards the black side. And then let's turn RGB down just a little bit. So I want to show some depth in the mouth. I want it to have enough shadow, so I'll paint my own shadows in sometimes. Like this. It just feels a little bit more fun. But I'll do this with the eyes as well. Because there's a lot of cavities, there's a lot of depth to characters, especially in areas of like eye sockets. Anytime there's some sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Orifice. There we go. Anytime there's an orifice in the face, there's shadow there, right? Even if there's intersections. So just having that little bit of something there would be good. And then with like kind of a deeper purple, I like to keep my shadows cool. So do something more like this. Add a little bit of that purple to it. Here we go. Yeah, I'll say something like that. And it's okay if you push it a little too far at first, because you can just lightly paint back over it and blend that color back into itself. Painting is all about layers. So yeah, I'm basically painting a fake AO, but I'm also giving it a little bit of like, a little bit of life to it, like a little bit of sheen. Like here, for example, too. So I have this main red, and this is something that you can do a lot. If you don't have a clear color swatch, then you can make one, right? So if you want to start like really painting up some good shadows and stuff like that, we're trying to get a little bit of life to the character. Then what you could do is come in here and insert yourself a 3D plane. Set this off to the side, subdivide this a few times, and then real quick you can come in, let's make this true white. So just fill that 100%, right? And then what you'll do at 100% RGB intensity, give yourself a little bit of red, come back in with like that kind of purple that you were looking for. And then from here, let's go back to kind of that black I was working with. Okay, great. And you always have white from this point, but now I want a little bit of highlight as well, right? So I'm going to want, based off of this red, I'm going to want some of this highlight and some of this highlight and maybe some of that as well. And then you could do the same thing with this purple. Take this purple, come in, add a little bit of this highlight, and maybe a little bit of this, right? So this way you have this swatch that's sitting off over here in space. You can always just kind of move this off over here. So now at any point in time, as I'm painting, I can just pick any one of these colors. So now, as I come through here, if I want there to be a little bit of a highlight on his eyebrows, come in with some of that. And you can also fake a little bit of like a subsurface scatter with this. You just come through here, start hitting some of these areas up. Because ZBrush can paint, you could take real painting theory you can make something come to life really quickly with just some vertex color, right? And then I can take a little bit of this color here, which is a little bit more of a highlight, and really just focus on some of this. And I can even add a little bit of that in the back here, because he's a tomato. And then let's go back to some of that. Now here's the thing too, sometimes shadows aren't just black or gray or purple or whatnot. Sometimes shadows are just a darker version of the color that is being reflected. So I first need to pick that guy, say something like that, and maybe a little bit darker like that. Okay, so then I could pick on this color here, go back to this guy, go back to a light RGB, and now I could just paint asymmetrically where some of this intersection is happening with the actual leaves and stuff on his head. And I'm actually starting by painting where the leaf is and just expanding a little bit beyond that. So basically I'm using the leaf as almost like a mask or it's acting like a mask. I'm really just painting right where it sees. So just a little bit of this comes in. Just bring a little bit of life to that. So there, it's so subtle, right? And then I can go just a little bit more, switch my color. In some areas, make that just a little bit darker. Again, if I go a little too far, it's okay. Just pull back, just sample some of the local color. So like here, you can sample this color and just kind of paint that back a little bit. So now I start to get something that's looking fairly decent. Why I do not sleep. Mr. Anger Tomato looks like me in the morning. That's fine. I never saw the show, but the tomatoes nightmare fuel for sure. Yeah, it absolutely could be. 3 a.m. don't sleep. Yeah, no, I'm still recovering. Still recovering from a ton of stuff. It's crazy. Yeah. So, okay. Actually, we are gonna call a little bit early. I'm feeling a little funky at the moment, but if you guys want, definitely feel free to follow me. All my socials and stuff are actually based on my ArtStation. So if you guys want to see my ArtStation and stuff like that, and pop in, you can see the work that I normally do. Again, I work for Maxons. I'm the Master ZBrush trainer and community manager here. And so it's really fun to be able to just come in every week and do my streams. And so definitely you can follow me there. If you guys would like to, you guys can also join my, server, my Discord server, because we always do fun stuff and things in there. So that's always cool. Those eyes deserve large eyelashes. Yeah, we got to do something for sure on that. We'll see how gritty we go with him. But it's been super fun. And then don't forget to, guys, I'll put a link right now. If you would like to try out for the beta for ZBrush for iPad, you have an iPad, you would like to go through, boom, go ahead and apply for it. Just come over here, follow the link I just dropped, come over here, go to the apply for beta, give it a second to load, and then it will ask you a bunch of questions about, hey, what it is you're, quote, doing, like, you know, all your stuff, your name, your email, how can we find you, you know, blah, blah, blah. Fill that stuff out and then send that information in because we're going to be looking for beta testers. So that is all for the day. Thank you, everyone, for coming in and hanging out. It's always fun. My first stream back in a few weeks actually feels pretty good. So just can't wait to get the rest of my voice and breath back. So, all right, everybody, that is it. And I will talk to all of you later. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, mornings, nights, wherever you are. And thank you again, and we'll talk to you later. All right, bye.